Okay, welcome. We're doing a little video here. I was looking at the instructor AMA discussion, AMA meaning ask me anything. And I saw this question from Joyce. It's a good question and there is an answer. So I thought instead of just typing out something in the reply that I'd make a video. Anyway, let's look at the question from Joyce. In the coding exercise, as I mentioned in the discussion, I'd wanted the red stripe to butt up against the black division with no white in between them. So this is a layout question. There's some kind of element with a red coloring, and Joyce wants it to be right next to some other element with a black coloring. And there's some kind of white, possibly a background, that should not show up in between them. So it should look like a red to black color transition in the layout. There's some explanation here about how it was accomplished, leaving off a closing bracket. That's probably not totally clean style. We're going to take a look in a second. Joyce tried a whole bunch of things to make the concept work. And she continues, I had absolutely no faith that it would show up the way I wanted it to anywhere else but the preview window, and close the tag. The code all displayed in its proper colors, and there was a white space in between the black box and the red stripe. For the first exercise, I decided I could live with that. So here's the peak of the ask. What I wanted to ask is this: is there a way to butt one color division up against a differently colored division without the default background color showing between them? And we simply haven't heard about it yet. Or is this something that I should leave out of any future plans for putting together a page? Okay, so we're gonna take the opportunity in this video to explore that question, and the answer, spoiler alert, the answer is yes, we can do that. We can make colors touch each other, block the background. You have that ability. It's only week, what is it, week? We've only started the course. So this is school, not the matrix. You can't download everything all at once, but I'm going to show you, we're going to go dig around all the course materials, find this design, and I'm going to show you how you can do it. Okay. So first I'm going to go here. I found the discussion comment that the AMA was referring to. I wanted my red stripe to butt up against the black heading. The only way I could do it was to not close one of the tags, et cetera, et cetera. So then here's the pen itself. Scrolling up. Here's the black panel right here. And here's the red stripe. And here's the white background. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this red stripe and bring it up, make it touch this black panel, no white in between. That's what we're going to demonstrate. So here I am. I've pulled up the design. I'm going to change the layout of CodePen here so that we can see more of the design together. And the question is this: how do we get this red element to begin where this black element ends? I believe that is the question. Let's take a look at how it's being done right now. Here's the div that has a background color of black. And there's a bunch of stuff in it. Crowd member. And it ends here. This div starts on 2 and it ends at 8. And here's another div, starts at 10 and it ends at 12. Okay. And there's some space here. All right. So the space, well, first of all, let me open a new pen. And we'll go over the basic principles. of elements touching each other. Here's a div. Here's another div. So we'll call this, we'll give this guy a name, ID black, and this guy a name, ID red. I'm giving these divs names so that I can call them black and red, and then you'll know what I'm talking about. So down here in my CSS, actually, I won't do that yet. I'll give both of these divs their own background color CSS. I'll also give them some sizes of 72 pixels. So we'll just have little boxes. Okay, so there's the black. I'm gonna just copy all this here and change this color to red. Now you'll see by default, these two divs actually touch each other. I have a white background, I have a black box, black div, and a red div, and they touch each other. So by default, these elements want to start right after the previous one ends. So if there's a space, it's because of some other style that has been introduced that is generating the space. Typically, the culprit is a CSS property called margin. If I say margin 10 pixels, watch what happens here. You see that they have, these two boxes have split apart. The black and the red have split apart. There's a white gap in here. It turns out that that white gap is 10 pixels right there from here to here. That's margin. Margin is the space outside of an element and on all four sides. So if I said margin bottom instead of margin, you'll see what happens. The black scoots over to the left because it's not being asked to add a 10 pixel pad on the left, the top, or the right, just the bottom. So I would expect in two div elements that are on top of each other, if there's no margin, there should be no gap. However, here, here's a panel, it's a black panel with a bunch of content in it, and then here's a red div with no content in it. They're located right here, and I don't see a margin. I would expect to see some kind of margin here or here, and I don't see that. So we're going to take a closer look to figure out what's going on. Let's see, there's a P here with a period in it. Where's the period? Okay, there's a tiny period over there. All right. Anyway, that's the background. Padding top 18, padding bottom 12, padding left 72. Okay. Then here's a P with an image. Okay. I see some things here. Here's a style attribute of something, 20%. I'm not sure what that's about. But this style attribute here, anything that's a value to the style should probably be in quotes. So I'm going to just put this in quotes because it should be in quotes. And I'm not sure what this 20% refers to. It's just a value. So in theory, it's not going to do anything. All right. Here's my H1. White. H2. I'm going to try something here. I think there's a, well, I know actually, you see here, there's a little gap from the top of the document, from the top of this window to the first element, this black background div. There's a little bit of gap here. So it tells me there's a default margin happening somewhere in this document in an area that's not declared. So it's actually the body. So I'm going to put a body tag up here. A body tag, we haven't formally gone through this yet, but the body tag is actually the super tag that should be wrapped around all of your HTML that you're writing for, whatever is going to show up on your web page. We're not doing it right now because CodePen doesn't require it, but in this case, you see that there's a little gap here. It's because the body has a default margin to it. So if I reset the margin to 0 on the body, one thing you'll see is that this black div closes up and there's no white showing up there. There is still something here. We have to address that. So now we're going to have to hunt around and see what part of the code is creating this situation. Let's see. Let's set the margin bottom to 0 explicitly on the black div to see if that does anything. It does nothing. Let's go to this div, the red div, and set the top margin explicitly to 0 to see if that does anything. It does nothing. And then here's a div. Here's a div that does nothing. And then here's a P. And then here's a div. There's a div that appears to be, there's an extra piece here. Here's another div. Here's an H2, here's a UL, here's an H2, here's an H3. Here's a closed div. And a start of a div that doesn't close. Let's close this here. Amazing. Well, at this moment, I'm stumped. I'm going to take all the content in the black div and I'm going to hide it. To test the behavior of what is going on in this black div. Okay. Let's take everything in the red div and hide it. The red div just goes away. Let's bring it back. I'm going to add a height to the red div and take out this little spot. Ah, look at that. Look at that. Okay, so we found what it is. So I'm going to undo all this stuff. Take away the body style too. We're going to return to the original state of the design. The original state of the design has this black panel with a hero element, and then this red bar. And the red bar is being achieved with this P tag on red. Now, turns out, I'm going to take out this margin top. I'm going to take out this margin bottom because that wasn't the issue. The issue was the way this, where is it? Here. this p tag on HTML line 13 is being used to create the space of this red div, color red period. And there's a tiny little period in right there. But it turns out that that is also adding to this white space. If I take this out, the red div completely goes away because there's nothing inside the red div. However, if I define a height to the red div of 15 pixels and there's nothing in it, still it will show up as having 15 pixels of height and nothing will be in it. That period won't need to be there. So that p tag, what we can say about the p tag, all text tags, H1s, H2s, all H's, P's, spans, have some default formatting to them. And what I'll say is that there's some default formatting of font sizes and spaces. And the P actually has, you know, it pushes space below it and it looks for something above it and that kind of thing. And something about that P tag was forcing this red div to overflow and then set itself below this black panel. So now that we got rid of it and we're using instead a more simple, more direct property, height, we're just setting the height to this div. That's actually all you want to do. So it's a much more direct, much more explicit way to give this red div its body. It's also now just starting where the black div ends. So yeah, that's my answer. That's actually more, it's not so much my answer, it's my detective work. That is the reason why these two were not, these two divs weren't lining up the way Joyce wanted, and we figured it out, and now we've learned how to do that. So I think the main lesson is that as we're learning how to code and how to make things look the way we want in code, there's always ways we can figure things out, but every solution might come with its own extra details or baggage. So think about, you know, the most specific, precise way to express what you want, and then that will lead you to the code. It'll help you decide what is the best code to use. Okay, so we'll call it a wrap for this question. Thank you, Joyce, for the question. I'll post this video and have fun. Have fun designing, everyone.